There are two definitions: serial killer and mass murderer. A serial is someone who commits multiple murders separated by time. Usually it's a few weeks or months. In different countries, the number of victims for the serial is different. Somewhere it's 3 lives, somewhere it's 2. And a mass murderer differs in that a criminal takes the life of 2 people, but in a short period, for example, in a few minutes. So today I want to tell you about 2 of the most monstrous crimes in criminal history. On April 27, 1982, a South Korean policeman took the life of 57 people in 8 hours and injured 35 more. And on July 23, 2011, a Norwegian who disguised himself as a policeman took the lives of about 80 people. But about everything in order. I will post all the documentary footage from the crime scene that YouTube will not miss in the Telegram channel, the link in the description. Bomgon was born on February 24, 1955 in Gyeongsang-namdo, South Korea. A lot of information is hidden and classified in this case, so nothing is known at all about Bomgon's childhood, except that he studied well and always wanted to become a policeman. Until 1978, Bomgon served in the South Korean Marine Corps. After being discharged from the army, he returned to Gyeongsang-namdo province and got a job in the police in December 1980. He worked well, there were no complaints about him, and his colleagues spoke of him as a good and kind man. And a year later, in December 1981, he transferred to the neighboring police department, Kunya. The reason is unknown, but according to Bomgon, he did it on his own initiative.
Hey, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You have to subscribe to the channel and like it so you don't miss new videos.
The incentive to go for a bloody world record looks just worthless. And this is not my invention, this motive was really written by the South Korean media. On the afternoon of April 26, 1982, Bomgon had an argument with his girlfriend Chun Mal-sun, who woke him up by swatting a fly on his chest. He was not in the mood and angry came to the police station, where he drank a fairly large amount of alcohol. On the advice of his boss, around 1600 hours, he headed home. At about 1930, he began to deal with his girlfriend in physical form and smashed the furniture in his house, after which he headed back to the station, where the duty officer, despite the state of the bomb, let him into the armory. At that time, the man took 7 hand grenades, 2 M1 carbines and 200 rounds of ammunition. Some kind of meeting was held at the police station in the evening, and Bomgon, taking advantage of the absence of colleagues, armed himself to the teeth. Leaving the station, the criminal saw colleagues coming towards him. So that they would not ask him unnecessary questions about weapons, he threw a grenade at them. The explosion killed 1 person and injured 3 others. Immediately after that, Bomgon shot at 2 policemen at the patrol car and seriously wounded both, but they also survived. At about 21:30, the killer policeman started shooting at people in the market in the village of Torin. There he wounded several people, then went to the neighboring village, Kunya, where he went to the post office and took the lives of 3 telephone operators and ruined the connection by cutting the wires so that the survivors could not call the police. I think you have a question, but why didn't the other police officers initially go after him? But I didn't find the answer to it. Then Bomgon started shooting passers-by and threw 2 grenades into the windows of houses. In 2 more villages, Unj and Pyeongkong, Bomgon took the lives of 42 people, many due to the fact that he was allowed into houses because they saw him wearing a policeman's uniform. The shooter also took the life of a 16-year-old teenager to take his drink. Bomgon's follies lasted 8 hours, during which time he passed 5 villages of the province. Although the police were alerted within a few minutes after the first shots were fired, and the staff of the department where Bomgon himself worked generally knew everything from the very beginning, but it took them an hour to assemble a team of 37 officers to search for the shooter and arrive at the scene. Around 5 a.m. on April 28, 1982, Bomgon, who by that time had only 2 grenades left, ran into the house of 68-year-old So In-soo. When the police surrounded the house, Bomgon took his life screaming. The owner of the house himself received several wounds from grenade fragments, and 3 members of his family died in the explosion. In total, 57 people died as a result of the massacre, including the perpetrator himself. Another 35 were injured. Subsequently, the authorities stated that Bomgon suffered from an inferiority complex. Also, the provincial authorities dismissed and arrested 3 police officers for negligence, including the head of the police station where Bomgon served, who did not give any relevant orders. When he was informed that a Bomgon in a state of alcoholic intoxication stole a large amount of weapons and ammunition from the armory. And also the duty officer, who, despite the state of the bomb, let him into the armory and released him with an arsenal of weapons in his hands. It remains a mystery why the man became so furious. Somehow it was not believed that the guardian of order took the lives of 57 people because of a fly swatted on his chest. Chun Mal-sun said after the tragedy that her husband had been strange and very aggressive lately. According to her, he was very offended by the jokes of the villagers that he lives with a girlfriend not married. But this also does not explain the attack of his vicious aggression. After the investigation of the case, the South Korean Cabinet of Ministers decided to pay compensation to the victims and their family members, thereby admitting their guilt in setting a bloody record for them. In total, the policeman took 57 lives and injured 35 more people. Before him, nothing like this had happened in the modern history of criminology. And a Norwegian was able to break this terrible record, on July 23, 2011. A man disguised as a policeman to shoot vacationers took the lives of 80 people on the island. It took investigators several hours to realize the full horror of the carnage that followed the explosion in neighboring Oslo, which killed 7 people, which, according to police, was committed by the same suspect. His name was Anders Behring Breivik. As a child, Anders worried school psychologists with a strange smile. It didn't seem to express an emotional state, but was a deliberate disguise. In the Breivik case, it was written that Vank humiliated her son, raised her hand and often wished him death out loud. The reports described the woman as a person with a difficult childhood, borderline personality disorder and severe depression. Anders changed several schools. Classmates remembered him as an intelligent, physically developed guy who protected the weak from bullying. As a teenager, Breivik played sports. Anders and his father soon stopped communicating, both blamed each other for the breakup of the relationship. Jens divorced for the second time, but the boy continued to be friends with his stepmother. The young man was released from conscription, having been declared unfit. Since 2000, Breivik has worked in the customer service department at a telecommunications company, and former colleagues gave different assessments of his personality. Some called Anders exceptionally kind to everyone, others assured that the man was annoyed by Arabs, Asians, and people of other nationalities. In 2002, the future maniac created a website where he sold fake diplomas. He also traded stocks on behalf of the company and made millions from it. In his youth, Breivik tried to establish a personal life by getting to know girls from Eastern Europe via the internet. Norwegian women seemed to Anders to be bad housewives who did not know how to cook and, moreover, advocated equal rights with men. Anders went to Belarus to meet a girl known to the press under the assumed name Natasha. Later, she visited Breivik in Oslo, who took her to restaurants and showed her the sights. According to the native of Minsk, the man was kind in correspondence, but in real life he turned out to be a real tyrant. He didn't take his girlfriend seriously, insulted women and behaved terribly. After the breakup, Breivik accused Natasha of needing only money and Norwegian citizenship. Anders became withdrawn, settled in his mother's house and played computer games for days. The girl moved to the USA and is now trying to forget the connection with the monster. On July 22, 2011, Breivik took the lives of 8 people by blowing up a car in the government quarter, near the building of the Prime Minister's office. 2 hours later, he also committed a massacre and took the lives of 69 more people, among them 33 minors. In total, 77 people became victims, several hundred more were injured. The Norwegian showed a black sense of humor, dressed in a police uniform, and made his way to the camp allegedly to check in connection with the explosion, which he himself arranged. The whole horror lasted for an hour. Breivik was sentenced to imprisonment in solitary confinement for a period of 21 years, with the possibility of extension. His social media accounts were blocked. According to the press and the public, the monster was provided with heavenly conditions of imprisonment: 3 rooms of 8 meters, a bedroom, a study, and a gym with a treadmill, a huge library, a PlayStation console. Every day, the prisoner was given €8 so that he could buy fresh vegetables and fruits, chocolate and sparkling water in the prison store. He was allowed to take exams at the University of Oslo. In 2015, a Norwegian criminal tried to sue the state to end his isolation in prison, claiming that such strict detention rules violated his human rights. He won the first round in 2016, but lost on appeal. Then Breivik decided to change his name. Now he is called Fjotolf Hansen in the population register. The reasons for this action are unknown. In September 2020, Breivik's lawyer announced that the client intended to seek parole. This news caused angry comments from the public. The mayor of Oslo and the general secretary of the Norwegian Workers' Party said that he would never be released. Despite the outrage of the public, the trial for the early release of the Norwegian shooter still began on January 18, 2022. The lawyer explained to the press that absolutely every prisoner sentenced to the maximum penalty can exercise the right to parole after 10 years of serving his sentence. Breivik's case was considered in court. The prosecutor gave a small comment in which she noted that, according to the prosecutor's office, Anders continues to pose a danger to society and will always pose it. In an interview, Breivik said, "I regret what I did on July 22, 2011. If it were possible, I would make sure that it didn't happen." On February 1, 2022, the court denied Breivik parole.